Welcome to the Thursday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Thursday. How's it going, everybody? Comic Seeking. That's a strange comment. It's a bit of a weird one, yeah? We have plenty of headlines to go through. So much headlines to catch up from yesterday. Oh, well, I mean, it's 2022. You'll be fine. guess we should just get into it, right? We have so many headlines to go through. I don't even know what we'll be able to get through, but you know what? We have to start. So on the first, I guess, TLDR, Alex Jones, the Alex Jones trial was pretty funny. The culmination of hilarity was when apparently, who knows if this was done on purpose or they're trying to do some massive 200D chess move, but apparently Alex Jones's lawyer accidentally or on purpose, it doesn't really matter, but the deed was done where he leaked all the messages to the defendants or to the other lawyers, and now it looks like other folks are requesting these messages, including the January 6th committee, which we will talk about. Jumping really quickly, today, earlier this morning, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has decided that he suspends a Tampa prosecutor because he can. The reason why authoritarian Governor DeSantis decided to relieve Andrew Warren of his post, was because Andrew Warren took a stance to basically say we are not prosecuting folks who seek to get an abortion. Because, of course, Ron DeSantis is a authoritarian fuck, and, authoritarians do as authoritarians do. And if you do not play ball, then you will be relieved from your post. This is, make no mistake, despite the entire clown show that he put on, despite the entire circus that he put on, bringing on a bunch of clowns for sheriff's office and whatnot, this is not about law and order, okay? That is a smokescreen. This is not about law and order. This was about punishment for not doing what the dear leader says. That is literally what it is. It is retaliation for not doing what the dear leader says. And God, God help us if he gets anywhere near the power of the presidency. I could see this happening with Ron DeSantis, where he would become president and then just fire any attorney general that doesn't play ball, that doesn't go after the people that he wants, or doesn't enforce the things that he wants. So, yeah, Ron DeSantis belongs nowhere near power. I've been enjoying the Alex Jones Dog and Pony show. Yeah, I hope he gets, sued out of existence. I hope he gets sued to the point where he has, no ability to run his operations. That's just my opinion. I hope he gets sued to the point where he has absolutely no way of running any of his operations. Screw him. Don't care. I hope InfoWars gets clapped with such a big bill it shuts them down. Yeah, I hope Alex Jones gets sued out of existence. Yeah. I hope Alex Jones gets sued out of existence. That's my hope. So I guess we'll start there. January 6th committee and federal investigators have asked Alex Jones for phone records, and Sandy Hook attorney says. The attorney representing two Sandy Hook parents in the Alex Jones defamation case has said on Thursday that numerous federal and state investigators, including the House panel investigating the January 6th insurrection, have asked him to hand over text records mistakenly sent to him by the right-wing conspiracy theorist law firm. Nice. I'm under request from various federal agencies and law enforcement to provide the records. Mark Bankston, the plaintiff's attorney, told Judge Maya Guerra Gamble, absent a ruling from you saying you cannot do that, I intend to do so immediately following this hearing. Good. I believe that there's absolutely nothing that Mr. Reynolds has done to fulfill his obligations to protect his client and prevent me from doing that, he said, referring to Jones' attorney, Andino Reynolds. I've been asked by the January 6th committee to turn the documents over. Bankston declined to specify to CNN which other investigators outside the White House committee expressed interest in obtaining Jones' text records. Bankston revealed on court on Wednesday that Reynolds' firm, in an apparent mishap, had sent him 2 years of cell phone records that included every text Jones had sent. Jones was a central player on January 6th. He was at the rally before the insurrection, and he did not, though he did not storm the Capitol. The InfoWars founder testified virtually before the January 6th committee earlier this year, but he repeatedly asserted his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent during the interview. The judge overseeing the case advised Reynolds to take some time while they await a verdict to research legal arguments stopping Bankston from disclosing information to the January 6th committee. The jury hearing the case is deliberating how much Jones will have to pay the parents of a victim of the mass shooting at Sandy Hook, who sued him for defamation and infliction of emotional distress and won default judgments. Yeah, they should sue him out of existence. Alex Jones was pocketing $75K a day. Jesus. Alex Jones can bring Rush 2.0 next. Let's get Tucker. Yeah, Tucker's a little tougher. Yeah. Tucker's smart at what he does. Oh, there's like flies all over the place. One just hit my eye. Okay. So that's a good meme. It's a good way to start, right? I think that was funny. Let's talk about this. Today is a pretty decent amount of good news, okay? It's not all bad, right? Which is rare. It's not all bad, which is rare, so we'll take it, okay? Kansas voters block effort to strip abortion protections from state constitution. So the state constitution of Kansas actually guarantees the right to bodily autonomy, which is a big problem for conservatives, because they actually do not believe in any of that. They don't believe in that. It turns out that this is probably the best way to defend abortion rights. I like the appellant's lawyer proving Alex Jones was lying over and over again. Yeah, I mean, if Alex Jones is talking, 99% of the time he is lying. It is by statistical mistake that he says something truthful. Like, eventually he's going to say something that's right. But it is a statistical anomaly that Alex Jones is telling the truth, okay? 99% of the time, he's just lying. Yeah. Keep in mind, Joe Rogan was the guy who said that Alex Jones has been right about more things than anybody, or some bizarre quote like that. Yeah. Anyways. Abortion rights force scored an upset victory. Why is this an upset victory? Like, they make it seem like as if this was unexpected. If you pose the question, do you believe that the state constitution should be amended to remove the rights to bodily autonomy? The answer to that is going to be no. What? And furthermore, when you talk about like the way people think, or I should say the way people are politically, a lot of people are more progressive than people think. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't put a D or an R next to it, a lot of people, just generally speaking, would lean more progressive. And when put with ballot initiatives, you can see that. You can see that bear out. The vote, which comes just 6 weeks after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, means Kansas will remain one of the few red states where abortion is widely accessible. It also provides hope to abortion rights supporters who are betting on ballot initiatives in other conservative states to restore or maintain access to the procedure. Yeah, that's how you need to do it at this point. Can I get your opinion on a Reddit post? No, not really. What was not expected was the size of the no. Okay, I suppose that's a fair point. Skullsaw. Alex Jones to pay $4.1 million. That's it? It should be like 10 times that. If it's political, why don't you just ask it here, okay? Or why don't you just give me a TLDR? I'm not going through a Reddit post. Republicans must be soiling their trousers over the size of the no. We'll see. We'll see how that pans out. Ideally, we would be in a situation where that is a good indicator as to what's going on here. For the midterms, maybe it's not going to be as bad as it was originally, but who knows? Emily Wales, the president of Planned Parenthood Great Plains, which covers Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, and seeing the effects of the abortion bans recently going into effect in roughly a dozen states, made the issue more tangible for Kansans and spurred them to vote no. Based. This level of government overreach, literally interfering in the decisions of a physician and a patient make together, has resonated with people in Kansas. It's a scary moment to think that you or your loved one might be in a situation where it's not up to you or your provider what care you can get, and instead it's up to the government what they think you deserve. Yep, that's Republicans for you. Republicans actually do not believe in the concept of small government. Republicans do not believe in the concept of freedom. Republicans do not believe in democracy. That's just how it is. The turnout for the primary also soared above usual levels on Tuesday, and in some counties was closer to the participation usually seen in presidential elections. Nice. More than 900,000 people voted, with 59% voting to reject the amendment. that an in-person early vote, which tends to favor Dems, was nearly 250% higher than the last primary midterm in 2018, when both Dems and Republicans had competitive governor races, while the number of mail-in ballots was more than double. Nice. The No campaign also outperformed fairly in conservative areas, like in Shawnee County in the eastern part of the state, coming in several points ahead of Biden's result there in 2020. Nice. At abortion rights campaign watch party in the Kansas City suburb of Overland Park, supporters cheers, cried, and jumped and hugged each other tightly as new waves of votes were counting it in their favor. Teens with purple hair wearing cutoff mingled with older men and women in suits in a hotel ballroom. One woman cradled a doll of Ruth Bader Ginsburg as she watched the results. Abortion isn't a partisan issue, it's a trap people fall into. That's just not the way most Americans or Kansas think about the issue. Well, Republicans don't care about any of that. They're authoritarian. The vote also countered the narrative that abortion issue is a bigger motivator for conservative voters and may signal a warning to Republican lawmakers across the country that the Roe decision may generate considerable backlash over the coming months and years. Well, good. I hope so, but I don't know. Jordan Walker, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Oh, it's Alio. That's right. I remember now. Okay. The Twitch is glitching. Okay. No worries. Well, you can hang on YouTube. That's why we have YouTube. Howdy. Reproductive freedom is a winning issue now and in November. Well, that's up to how they play this. It's up to the Democrats' strategy as to how aggressive they want to play this. Or they should play this, I should say. Anti-choice lawmakers take note. The voters have spoken, and they will turn out at the ballot box to oppose efforts to restrict reproductive freedom. The decision means abortion clinics in the state can continue to serve not only Kansas, but also patients from Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, and other states that have banned the procedure after Roe fell, many of whom have traveled to Kansas in the recent weeks. The anti-abortion campaign seized on this trend, warning in ads that the state would become an abortion destination like California if the amendment failed. Value them both, the umbrella group of anti-abortion advocates, or you could also say forced birth groups who pushed for the amendment, called the decision a temporary setback. Get bent. Don't care. Our dedicated fight to value women and babies is far from over. Well, you don't value either of them. That's the problem. Trump's lawyers are in talks with the January 6th. Good. I'm sure we'll find out more information. What, are you talking about John Eastman? The referendum's results particularly shocked the state because the pro-amendment campaign had some structural advantages heading into Tuesday, and they were ahead in recent polls. Not only Kansas, a solidly red state that twice voted for Trump, but also the supermajority Republican legislator decided to schedule the vote for the primary instead of the general election. Turnout is usually far lower in August and favors Republicans who have more competitive primaries than Democrats in Kansas. And many college students who trend more progressive are away from the summer. Damn, these guys are slimy. These guys are slimy. Wow. Well, get bent. And so, like, this is why it's so important to show up, okay? This is why it's so important that if you have the ability to show up at the polls, you should, you know? Student activists working to defeat the amendment said they were all more motivated by what they saw as an underhanded effort to suppress their votes. Paste. Nice. It was very intentional. Wow, that is such a good way, a good combat to do a reversal on that. Nice. It was very intentional. I think young people have taken note of that and realized that there are political structures in place to put us down. Nice. Said Donovan Dillon, a University of Kansas sophomore who helped lead the country's Western theme vote nay on the campaign against the amendment. When I reach out to friends and ask, do you want to come to Canvas this weekend? Everyone's been all hands on deck, even friends who have never been involved politically. The value of them both, the amendment was rocket fuel for the usually sleepy primary election. Hundreds of volunteers from around the country converged on the state to knock on hundreds of thousands of doors. Both sides raised and spent millions of dollars on ads, mailers, phone banking, and other outreach. Much of it from the Catholic Church, of course. Garbage. And the anti-abortion on the anti-abortion side, and Planned Parenthood on the abortion rights side. But while the state served as a proxy war for the groups fighting over abortion rights nationally in a post-Roe America, the campaigns also had a distinctly Kansas flavor. Outside the state capitol in Topeka on Saturday, people protesting against the amendment waved posters covered in sunflowers while speaking on the Capitol steps and invoked the state motto Ad Astra per Aspera, to stars and through adversity. Local business down the street showed Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz urging her fellow Kansans to vote no. Nice. Anyways, DLDR, great job, Kansas, and hopefully this kind of puts a blueprint. It puts a blueprint as to what what strategies should be deployed and what works for the midterms, like a bellwether. This is precisely why I've said for ages that abortion was only useful to Republicans as a rhetorical tool rather than an actual one. You don't win elections by motivating your opponents to turn out en masse. Yep. And even in the most reddest of red states, the answer is clear. Get bent. That's the answer. Well, hopefully this is a mistake that Democrats will take advantage of to stop them. That's about as much as I can hope, but never underestimate the Democratic Party to find a perfectly good way of torpedoing themselves. So we'll see how they play this in the midterms. I mean, for one, being aggressive and saying, you know what, we're going to carve out exceptions to the filibuster and get this done could be a possibility. Pushing for ballot initiatives or constitutional amendments that actually protect bodily autonomy, just like Kansas has, works too. I mean, the vote is also somewhat unsurprising. The result almost exactly mirrors the national sentiment. Yeah, I would agree. It's just that it does echo the national sentiment, but in such a red area, that's the kind of surprising factor, because it's in such a red area that which is why I'm saying no matter where you go, it turns out that people actually value bodily autonomy. It's the conservative legislatures, the top, who don't value that. Oh, that's true. It's a red area based on district layouts. Actual partisan distribution may be a bit more diverse. Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. Absolutely. Well, Pelosi, with the vets, I think that's a good, strong, point, but, we'll see. I don't know what Pelosi's up to. Pelosi. The Build Back Better never happened. And, well, we'll see. NLRB dismisses Starbucks charge against union organizers. Nice. The National Labor Relations has dismissed a charge Starbucks filed against union organizers in Phoenix, saying there was not enough evidence that pro-union workers blocked store entrances or intimidated customers during a spring rally. Nice. The Seattle-based Starbucks filed a charge with the Labor Board in April. The company contended that pro-union workers violated U.S. labor law by threatening workers and customers at Phoenix Starbucks store. The company claimed workers blocked the store's entrance, made threats, and yelled profanities and pounded on the store's windows. But in a letter to the company late last week, the regional director of the NLRB in Phoenix, Cornell Overstreet, dismissed the charge. Overstreet said in his investigation showed that demonstrators remained on the sidewalk and didn't touch any employees, customers, or vehicles. Although it may also be why there should only be cautious optimism regarding the midterm elections, it could translate to those votes, but they will more likely be different. Different types of turnout and different reasons to vote, different things on offer. But yeah, resounding pushback against the ruling of the Supreme Court. Oh yeah, 100%. Pelosi got a big vote of support from Republicans on Taiwan. Yeah, but that's I don't know, because they're blaming her for trying to start World War III or something. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we're getting massive Republican support for anything, to be quite frank. Starbucks said on Monday it will appeal. We disagree. We disagree with the NLRB's ruling. Get bent. And we'll appeal as we continue our efforts to protect our partners. And we'll appeal as we continue our efforts to continue to stomp on our employees and allow our voices to be heard. The charge was just one of two that Starbucks has filed against Workers United since the union began organizing U.S. Starbucks store late last year, according to the NLRB. Yeah, but they don't care. They have no principles. They're accusing her of trying to start World War III. You know? Workers United has filed more than 250 unfair labor practices against Starbucks, which opposes unionization, of course, because they're a large company. More than 200 of Starbucks' 9,000 company-owned stores have voted to unionize since last December. Workers at Phoenix stores voted no to unionize in early May. Nice. Well, that is 200. More than 200. Trying to make Trump and Wizard of Oz joke reference. Like for Oz? Like Dr. Oz? He's not doing too good on the polls, is he? Western U.S. faces water and power shortages due to climate change, the UN warns. The two largest reservoirs in the U.S. are at dangerously low levels, threatening to supply fresh water and electricity to 6 states and Mexico. The United Nations Environment Program warned on Tuesday. Lake Mead and Lake Powell, which are both man-made reservoirs on the Colorado River, are currently at their lowest levels ever, in part because of an ongoing drought that's being exacerbated by climate change. This has been going on for decades, I believe. The conditions in the American West, which we're seeing around the Colorado River Basin, has been so dry for more than 20 years that decades, that we're no longer speaking of a drought. Yes, said Liz Moulin Bernhardt, an ecosystem expert at UNEP. We refer to it as aridification, a new very dry normal. Yikes. The river is also struggling thanks to overconsumption due to growing population and outdated agreement that guarantees allotments for its neighboring states. The reservoirs provide water for agriculture and residential use in Arizona, California, Colorado, Wyoming, Nevada, and New Mexico. If conditions don't improve, Lake Mead and Lake Powell are at risk and reaching dead pool status, which the water is so low it stops flowing out of a reservoir. that would disable any hydroelectric dams that provide power for millions of residents in the western US. And just like that, boom, gone. We're talking about a 20-year drought, a 20-year period of drought-like conditions. Tina, rating with a party of 39. Hello, everybody. And a resubscribe for 11 months now. Jesus. Welcome, everybody. Yeah, I don't know about Joe finishing the wall, and I don't know if that's good. That's not a good thing. These are not good things. Folks, if you don't know who I am a difficult truth. I do the news, I do the politics Monday through Thursday. I was going to say Monday through Friday. Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And we do the Catterdays on the weekends. So make sure you hit the follow button. If you do, you get 5 free emotes. Look at that. 5 free emotes. And make sure that if you have like 5 seconds, join us on the YouTube, okay? Just hit the subscribe button. It really does help us out. For those of you that don't know, you should check out twitch.tv/Tina2, okay? Go do the follows, do the subs, do the thing, you know? But the Senate voted for the PACT Act for vets last week. That's a lowercase w, yes. Taiwan has always been a huge burr up China behind. If Puerto Rico had half the world oil, or 2/3 of the world's refineries, then the U.S. would have exactly the same way if a CCP leader visited Puerto Rico too. Yeah. 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 I hear your gas prices are falling. That is true. For now. That is true for now. Welcome, everybody. We are going currently over a article. Echo Resto Dragon, how's it going? Oh my god. Jeez. Abon with the tier 1 gifted sub. Kicking off the timer for a hype train. Jeez, already? They fall into the oil companies are allowed to gauge again. Are allowed to price gauge again. Yeah, basically. I think like the most that has been done is I think they like did a small tax jubilee, a temporary tax jubilee, which is pretty much as a president can do, or as much as a government can do. But other than that, I mean, there's not much to say there. How's it going, Maple Leaf Dragon and Echo Resto Dragon? We are going over an article about how effed the water situation is and power situation. We are talking about a 20-year period of drought-like conditions. He could nationalize the fossil fuel industry. He could declare a climate emergency and say, you know what, you know, that's it, enough. He could. But, you know, we're talking about a 20-year period of drought-like conditions with an ever-increasing demand on water. These conditions are alarming, and particularly in the Lake Powell and Lake Mead region, it is the perfect storm. The falling water levels have been a concern for U.S. officials for some time. In June, the Bureau of Reclamation Commissioner Camille Touton told the Senate Energy and Natural Resource Committee that maintaining critical levels at Lake Mead and Lake Powell would require significant reductions in water delivery. What has been a slow-motion train wreck for 20 years is accelerating, and the moment of reckoning is near. John Ensinger, general manager of the Southern Nevada Water Authority, said at the Senate hearing. Due to the declining water levels in Lake Mead, which is near Las Vegas, 3 dead bodies long buried under the water have recently been exposed. Yeesh. Yikes. Some water use restrictions have already been put in place. The Metropolitan Water District of Southern California instituted emergency water curtailments in June, typically limiting outdoor watering to 1 to 2 days per week. The drought in the West has had a number of effects in recent years, including unusually bad wildfire seasons. Climate scientists say disruptions to the water cycle, especially drought, will become more common as a result of rising global temperatures. Global temperatures are on the rise and have been for decades. Yep. True, they were digging in that water for a long time, too. True. Folks, take 5 seconds to go check out twitch.tv/carpetbacks. Do it. Yeah, so that's nice. Tens of millions of people are on the cusp of essentially not having water. Millions that rely on hydroelectric power are being threatened with no power right now. Nevada may have to go the way of Dune and Freeman, just reclaim the water from the dead. Sheesh. And yet there are people that say that climate change isn't a problem. That's unfortunate. We're all powerless. Most of us just don't know it yet. Well, as long as there's still time. Here's a good meme. Arizona officials who plan to overturn the election in Trump's favor are worried about activating a group of fake electors could appear, quote, treasonous. Oh, boo. Hold on. Is this really behind a paywall? Ah, here we are. 2 Arizona GOP officials who helped plan to overturn the 2020 election worried that their actions could appear treasonous. Damn, really? Maybe because it was. The officials plan to install an alternate set of electors, meaning they plan to install fake electors to vote in favor of Trump after a vote count had determined that Joe Biden had won the presidential election. What tipped them off? We are powerless until we reclaim our power. What form that will take depends on the situation and circumstance. Yep, that makes sense. A similar plan was in place in Georgia, where some of the would-be electors could face charges for election interference, conspiracy, and racketeering. That's it. I think treason should be there. Seditious activity, but that's just me. Kelly Ward, the chair of the Arizona Republican Party, and Kelly Townsend, a state senator, both raised concerns about the plan that Trump's legal team circulated, according to emails published by the New York Times. Ward and Townsend are concerned that it could appear treasonous. Treason involves a foreign enemy only if Trump were acting on behalf of another country. Oh, I see. Okay. We are all powerless and yes. Chinatown 70 film is 75 about CA water rights and 1990 sequel to Two Jakes with Nicholson. He was doing it for himself. That's true. Could appear treasonous for AZ electors to vote on Monday if there is no pending court proceeding that might eventually lead to the electors being ratified as the legitimate ones. Kenneth Chesebro, a lawyer working for Mr. Trump's campaign, wrote in a 2020 email published by the New York Times. Jesus. The word treasonous appears to be in bold. The email was sent to a group that included Trump's personal lawyer, Rudolph Giuliani. Ward, despite her concerns, ultimately supported the plan and signed a document that falsely claimed to be a certificate of the votes of the 2020 electors from Arizona and falsely asserted that Trump had won the state's 11 electoral college votes. Yeah, like if there's no like legitimate harsh consequences or accountability for this is just gonna happen again. Like that's the big problem here. If there's no like legitimate accountability here, it's just gonna happen again. Like that's just gonna be every single election cycle is gonna go down like this. Townsend did not sign the document. Representatives for Ward and Townsend did not immediately respond to the insider's request for comment. Absolutely. If there's no consequences, if there's no accountability here. Jury award parents of Sandy Hook victims $4.1 million in defamation case against Alex Jones. Yep. I believe Alio said that 4.1 million. And to that I say it's not enough. It should be like 10 times that. It should be 10 times that. Moving on to the next clown show. The next Ooh. There's like little gnats. Next circus, I should say. Pro-Trump activists swamp election officials with sprawling records request. Pro-Trump operatives are flooding local officials with public record requests to seek evidence for the former president's false stolen election claims and gather intelligence on voting machines and voters, adding to the chaos rocking the US election system. Well, that's the point, right? Because like if you continue to push this idea, if you continue to keep hammering at the point that you just can't trust the elections, yeah, that's the point. This is deeply, deeply concerning that we're now 2022 at this point, like what, 2 years into this, just about, and it's still going on. A good portion of this country does not live within the realms of reality. A good portion of this country believes, without a legitimate shred of evidence, that somehow the election wasn't legitimate. And it's deeply concerning because all of this sets the stage for authoritarianism, right? Again, the conservatives here can and will implement a theocratic authoritarian state. Yeah, 2020, the most secure elections in modern history. You can't trust the elections. Yeah, that's the whole point, though. Exactly. That's the whole point. It's to rock the foundations of our, arguably, our most sacred piece of a democracy, which is the elections, and to set the stage for an authoritarian takeover. That's what they want, and that's what they are. Or Republicans can stop worrying about Trump instead. They are Trump. Like, this is a death cult, okay? Republicans are just a death cult. They're the exact same. All the Republican representatives, senators, and leadership, they're all the same. They're all essentially Trump, like a Trump ideology. Okay, they're all the same. There's no going back from that for them. The Maricopa County Recorder's Office in Arizona, an election battleground state, has fielded 498 public records requests this year, 130 more than all of last year. Jesus. Officials, and we're all Negan. Oh my god. Oh, that's a good throwback. Oh man, that's a good one. The Republican Party. We are all Trump. I mean, that's literally it. Have you seen the way freaking Ron DeSantis speaks and moves his hands? Have you seen that? Ron DeSantis literally does the thing. It's just how's it going, Eric? Nevada has fielded 88 public record requests, 2/3 more than in all of 2021. And the number of requests to North Carolina State Election Board have already nearly equaled last year's total of 229. The surge of requests is overwhelming staffs that oversee elections in some jurisdictions, fueling baseless voter fraud allegations and raising concerns about the inadvertent release of information that could be used to hack voting systems, according to a dozen of election officials. Essentially, I guess like a way of putting this would be they're effectively trying to manually DDoS the electoral system. You just know that he practices in a mirror with Trump on the monitor right next to you? What? Right next to him. Yes. I'm sure that's the only way. Have you seen him talk? And he absolutely moves and has the same hand motions as Trump. It's the most funniest thing ever, and weird and bizarre. Republican and Democratic election officials said they consider some of the requests an abuse of freedom of information laws meant to ensure government transparency. Records requests facing many of the country's 8,800 election offices have become voluminous and daunting since the 2020 election, said Kim Wyman, head of the election security at Federal Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Last year, when she left her job as Washington Secretary of State, the state's top election official, her office had a 2-year backlog of record requests. Jesus. You still have a group of people in each state that believe that the election was stolen, said Wyman, a Republican. In April, the official in Arizona's Maricopa County in charge of responding to public records requests, Eileen Haber, assigned 4 of her 9 staffers to pull 20,000 documents out of holding boxes, sort them for scanning, and then carefully return them to their proper place. It took 4 days. Jesus. The staffers were filing just one of several records requests from Haystack Investigations, who had asked for chain of custody records for all 2.1 million ballots cast in the election. Jesus. The firm says on its website that it conducts a variety of investigations for companies, law firms, and individuals. Yeah, okay. The company worked on Arizona's forensic audit. Wait, is this Cyber Ninja's reinvention? The examination of Trump's defeat in the country by pro-Trump partisans that ended last year without uncovering voter fraud. The labor-intensive Haystack request illustrates the growing challenge facing stretched election offices across the country. In Maricopa County, which includes Phoenix, extensive requests like the one submitted by Haystack make up about 1/4 of the total the office received this year. Jesus, said Haber, the director of communications and constituent services in Maricopa County Recorder's Office. The requests are getting bigger and more detailed, more burdensome, and going back even further. Yeah, like the definition of insanity is counting the same votes over and over again and expecting different results. Get over it. I do love the Reagan versus Trump cartoon rap video. Reagan won 2 terms and Trump did not. Yeah, but Reagan was also, bad. Reagan was really bad. Arguably, a lot of, the problems that we're experiencing are, domino effects or ripple effects from Reagan, from 2 terms of Reagan. I can only imagine what 2 terms of Trump would do. No, thank you. Heather Honey, who heads the Pennsylvania-based Haystack, said the requests were unrelated to the firm's work on Arizona audit and were for her own research. Yeah, okay. For her own research. All are meaningful and contribute to specific professional research activities. What? Bro, what could you possibly need to research, bro? Get over it. Jesus Christ. This is due to the destruction of trust in the media. Nobody trusts anything anymore, and the craziest of the dissenters are also the most motivated. Yeah, but there's it's so frustrating. Maple Leaf. This is correct. Reagan is still ruining the world, and he was just a continuation of what Nixon started. Yep. Yeah. 100%. Yep. Mike Lindell has new videos. Congratulations to him. I hope he gets buried by that $1 billion lawsuit. All are meaningful and contribute to specific research activities. Yeah, okay. The local officials told Reuters that the surge in requests from election deniers is drowning their staffs in extra work at a time when they're struggling to recruit and retain voting administrators vital to democracy. I think there should be some type of line drawn here where you can say, listen, bro, dude, at this point, the requests need to be handled on a, they need to be able to have guardrails to deny frivolous requests. Kind of like how you can, you can engage in frivolous lawsuits, but at some point, there will be consequences for engaging in frivolous lawsuits, right? Something like that would be appropriate here, because this is just ridiculous. This is just ridiculous. Unless that's the point, right? Unless that's the point, to effectively manually DDoS the infrastructure, the electoral infrastructure, to allow for more shenanigans, to allow for actual shenanigans from the Republican side. Yeah, but if the news is fake and elections are all fake, then why vote at all? I agree. The Republicans should just stay at home. Listen, it's all fake, okay? For your eyes, if there's any Republicans listening, for your eyes, it's all fake. There's no point in voting, okay? Stay home. The concern is burnout, said Jamie Rodriguez, the interim register of voters in Washoe County. With burnout does come the potential for mistakes. That's the point, I think. I mean, if it's not like it's hard to believe that, there's not some kind of at some point you have to believe that maybe this is part of what they're engaging in on purpose. They will have to suspend the request in order to take care of business of the state. Okay, good. Yeah, like I think that like they should have a way of saying, just like frivolous lawsuits, like at some point they're just gonna cut you off and be like, dude, enough. Like, just reject the request. To some degree, right? Because like you don't want to also take away the ability to have information from the government. Rodriguez took over this week from the former registrar, who resigned after being targeted with death threats and other harassment. Oh, that sounds like terrorism to me. Ryan Macias, probably by conservatives, because, Ryan Macias, an election security consultant for CISA, likened the swarm of records to... Oh, what? How does he do it, folks? How does he do it, chat? How does he do it? Oh, that's true. There's no guarantee of expedience with public record requests. Yeah, just put them on the back burner till whenever. If they get to it, they get to it. Whenever they get to it. Oh well. Ryan Macias, an election security consultant for CISA, likened the swarm of record requests to a denial of service cyber attack in which hackers attempt to overwhelm a network with internet traffic, and said it was creating a potential security risk given the stress already weighing on election workers. We have an attrition rate. We have people who are under threat from the community, which, by the way, like, that should be investigated. I hope. People who are getting death threats, people who are overworked. All 50 states have a freedom of information law that are used routinely by journalists, advocates, academics, and everyday citizens to access records on government. Such statute aims to ensure the public has the information needed to hold their leaders accountable. Local officials told Reuters that they believe in the importance of such laws and said they're trying to find creative ways to lessen the burden of the election-related requests on their staffers. Rather than ask for a bigger budget, Haber of Maricopa County said she trained her whole team to help respond. Washoe County temporarily halts the production of documents at a certain point of the election to ensure staff can focus on administering the vote. Rodriguez said. Donald Palmer, a commissioner on the Federal Election Assistance Commission, told a gathering of secretaries of state on July 8th in Baton Rouge that they should help local officials more efficiently responding to the deluge of requests by, for instance, creating a reading room site to simultaneously respond to duplicate requests from different people. Huh. Rodriguez said most for 9 current staffers joined in 2021 or 2022 after a rash of staff departures. She's trying to limit their overtime to keep them fresh for November, but the records requests aren't letting up. One request sought various information on the county's election workers during 2022 primary, including their phone number, mailing address, and party affiliation. Another was filed in late June by Robert Beatles, a businessman who moved from California to Reno in 2019 and is now leading a movement to push election fraud theories and target politicians who don't support his agenda. Yeah. Beatles tells visitors to visit his website, tells visitors to his website, Operation Sunlight, to send requests to their county clerks for a list of voters in November of 2020 election, broken down by voting method and the total number of ballots cast for each candidate. He asked him to email the records to Shiva Ayadurai, a leading purveyor of election fraud conspiracies. Neither Beatles or Ayadurai responded to emails seeking comment. Just assign it to 5 people in the office and they'll get to it when they get to it. Think of it as job security. There you go. If we have 2 years backlog, of rape kit processing, then we can backlog election requests too. 100%. Hey, Upset Walrus, how's it going? Howdy, howdy. As strapped government staff struggle to keep up with intensive inquiries, some election officials expressed concern about slipping up and releasing information that could compromise election security. Yep. Samuel Derheimer, Direction of Government Affairs and Voting at voting equipment manufacturer Hart Intercivic, said his company has seen an explosion of requests from election officials to help determining when releasing certain records threaten election integrity. Public record requests sometimes target operational manuals containing security protocols that should not be released to the public. Jeez. Yikes. Karen Burnson-Bell, Executive Director of North Carolina State Board of Elections, said one of the challenges is analyzing whether seemingly separate individuals or groups might be working together to piece together sensitive information about voting equipment and processes. That's when your antenna starts going up. We're having to spend a lot of extra time thinking in those terms. Jeez. Yeah, at this point, I would say, listen, all requests, we'll get to them, but after 2024. Sorry. All these election requests after 2024. And to kind of piggyback off that, election skeptics rise in GOP races to run state elections. Nice. Trump endorsed state lawmaker who won the GOP nomination for Arizona's Secretary of State. This guy is the guy that's nominated by the Republican Party for Secretary of State, which, need I remind you, it's a very important position that is incredibly powerful. Is the latest candidate to advance to November ballot for a post overseeing the state elections while denying the results of the last one. The irony. Anyways. Such early success of candidates is raising concern about what happens if those who lack faith in elections are put in charge of running them. It's not that, what happens is that they're going to reject the results of legitimate elections. That's the danger. And that's the point. State Representative Mark Feinsham, who easily cleared a crowded field in Tuesday's Arizona primary, he has embraced former President Trump's false claims that the 2020 election was stolen and has promised to upend election administration in the potentially pivotal state if elected. Nice. That's the Republican Party, folks. Like I said, it's not an isolated incident. That's just literally what they are at this point. focus of the election is going to be on restoring the rule of law. It's that simple. Right now we have lawlessness. Well, right now you have no evidence. That's the problem here. I guess one of the silver linings of these elections that happened recently is that the 4chan guy, Ron Watkins, did not win. He lost by a lot. He lost by a lot. I guess that's a silver lining. Fincham, who earned an early endorsement from Trump, was among those seeking to have the legislature overturn Democrat Joe Biden's win in Arizona. He joins Republican nominees for Secretary of State in Alabama, Indiana, Michigan, Nevada, and New Mexico, and Republican nominee for governor in Pennsylvania, and supporting Trump's false claims. This should be ringing multiple alarm bells, folks. This should be ringing multiple alarm bells. If they make elections more secure, I have no problem with that. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Can you... Okay, so if you're talking about election security, can you illustrate to me what the problem is to warrant more restrictions or more election security? I don't even know what election security has to do with this. This isn't about election security. It's about indulging one man's delusions. But it's about indulging one man's delusions to get power. That's literally the Republican Party. What's the issue here? If you want election integrity, then the implication means that there's a problem here. What's the evidence for your... Where's the evidence to illustrate that there's a problem to warrant this worry, I should say? What's your evidence to suggest that we even need to think about this? What's the evidence to suggest that this is even a problem to begin with? There we go. That's a better way of wording it. Telling you, people live in an alternate reality. People live in complete alternate realities. It's unbelievable. So this should be ringing multiple alarm bells. Secretary of State of Alabama, Indiana, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico. That's 5. That's 5 states. That's a pretty big chunk who are indulging in this election conspiracy nonsense. And 1 for governorship in Pennsylvania. That should be ringing multiple alarm bells, folks. Well, if we have more security around, the delusional people won't be able to say it was stolen. You should always wear your seatbelt, even if you're confident in your driving. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. What security do you want? Why are we even entertaining the idea? Okay? Why are we entertaining the delusional people? Does that make sense? Like, why are we even entertaining that idea? Dude, if you're telling me that 1 + 1 is 3, okay? I'm not entertaining that idea. It's just not true. You can tell me, and you can believe it with all your heart, that 1 + 1 is 3. But it's not true. Okay? I'm not entertaining that. There's no point in entertaining the delusional people. Why? Why do we need to entertain them? This is disanalogous. I wear my seatbelt because even if I'm confident of my driving, some other prick might hit me. What are you talking about? This is completely different. Anyways, this is in line with what Steve Bannon and some of these more competent far right strategists have been working on. They want to capture positions like Secretary of State and poll workers and election boards. They want these positions because at the end of the day, they know that this is the way they can finagle their way into power. And once the switch is flipped, there's no going back. Once the switch is flipped, there's no going back. So this right here, it may be a handful, but it should be ringing alarm bells. It should be ringing alarm bells that the GOP, the Republicans are pretty okay with nominating folks like this. There are gnats all over here. It's so annoying. Okay. In a bizarre change of pace, I guess, Breonna Taylor, the 4 cops, 4 current and ex-Lmpd officers are going to be charged, apparently, in a stunning 180. Because if you asked me if there was going to be any type of, hey, no, there we go. If you told me that there was going to be any type of accountability, I would have said no. I would have said no. But here I am. Eating my words, I guess. Saying Breonna Taylor should be alive today, Attorney General Merrick Garland announced that the 4 current and former Louisville Metro police officers have been federally charged in Taylor's March 2020 slaying that touched off a firestorm of protests in the city and across the nation. Former Louisville Metro Police Detective Joshua Janes was fired for lying on the search warrant that led... Holy yikes. Oh, man. Oof. Lying on the search warrant that led to the deadly 2020 raid at Taylor's apartment was taken into custody Thursday morning by the FBI and booked in Oldham County Detention Center. Jesus. Sergeant Kyle Meany, Officer Kelly Goodlett, and former Detective Brett Hankinson were also charged in a federal investigation of the March 2020 death of Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old EMT whose name became a rallying cry for protesters during demonstrations against police brutality and systemic racism. The 4 faced different charges related to violating Taylor's civil rights, including lying on the search warrant. Like, this automatically should... this automatically should just be like a huge no-no. Like, the fact that cops can get away with lying on a search warrant to get a search warrant that they know they otherwise wouldn't get. That should be an immediate boom. You're out. You're out. Yeah, just a few bad apples. Just a few bad apples that keep happening. 2 years later, we found out. I don't know if this was originally revealed. Was this? Can somebody fact check me on that? Is this like new information, or I should say, is this recent information that we found out that these assholes freaking lied on the request for the warrant? I know it happens, but for this particular case, um, was that something that was like a known fact at the time, or was that like a more recent revelation? The four face different charges relating to violating Taylor's civil rights, including the lying on the search warrant, obstructing investigators, and in Hanson's case, jeopardizing Taylor's neighbors with his reckless gunfire. Yeah, like all these people, holy yikes. It's just unfathomable to me how any of these people are police officers. Holy yikes. This is just unfathomable. This is wild. Garland announced the indictments during a news conference on Thursday at the Department of Justice headquarters. Hankinson, James Meany all made their first appearance Thursday before the magistrate. Judge Regina Edwards that were ordered released on the condition they have no contact with the defendants or victims. Edwards also ordered them to have no guns in their homes as a condition of their release and set unsecured bonds on all three of them at $50,000, which they may pay if they violate, which they must pay only if they violate the terms of release. Yeah, like I understand that there was like questions, particularly as to how that warrant was done, but it's concrete. Like they lied about it. Like for sure. It's not. This is for sure. Now we know. This is wild. This is unbelievable to me. The Lmpd fired Hankinson in June of 2020 for wantonly shooting into the apartment the night she was killed, resulting in several bullets piercing the wall into a neighboring occupied apartment. He was indicted on state charges of wanton endangerment, but acquitted by the jury. What? I completely forgot about this. Oh my god, this guy just literally just blind fired, could have killed other people. The jury acquitted him. Until now, no officers had faced charges for Taylor's death. Taylor's mother, Tamika Palmer, praised the decision to charge the officers at a press conference on Thursday morning, saying what we've been saying was that was the truth, that they shouldn't have been there, and Breonna didn't deserve that. Today's overdue, but it still hurts. That's so fucked. Unfreaking believable. While we must refer all questions about this federal investigation to the FBI, it is critical that any illegal or inappropriate action by law enforcement be addressed comprehensively in order to continue our efforts to build police community trust. Yeah, lol. Hankinson has served for Lmpd, don't give a shit. The charges, alleged civil rights violations that the officers face, except for Goodlett, can carry a maximum sentence of life in prison with no parole in the federal system. Well, that's, damn, that's it. One of the new indictments, as the DOJ announced, accuses James, Meany, and Goodlett of engaging in untruthful actions to obtain the warrant to search Taylor's apartment. The LMPD officers have obtained 5 search warrants with no-knock clauses as part of a large narcotics investigation. All the homes in the West End except for Taylor's apartment. They went to Taylor's home looking for cash or packages they suspected her former boyfriend, a convicted drug trafficker, had stashed in her apartment. Police insist that they didn't use the no-knock clause instead of announcing their presence before opening the door of Taylor's apartment, but neighbors and Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, who was in the bed, said that they never heard them announce that they were police. Yeah, I mean, like, you can successfully guess that what a lot of what the police are saying is just lies. It's just lies. Whenever stuff like this happens, um, it is often the case, and it is completely reasonable to assume that the police are lying. That's just, I mean, because they have, and they continue to do so because there's no way of holding that accountability. Like, if I mean, I don't know if we even have like rules about this, or either we do and they're not being enforced, or we need rules where the moment a police officer's lies to get a search warrant, boom, you're gone. You're gone. You're gone. Some of the protesters were neighbors of Breonna Taylor and heard the shit go down. Jesus Christ. Oh, you blind fired your weapon without knowing who was behind the other wall? You blind fire? You're like that. Oh my God. Jeez. Walker said the two heard pounding on the door and got up to investigate when the door crashed open. Walker said he fired a single shot from his legally owned handgun, hitting one of the officers, Detective Jonathan Mattingly, in the thigh and severing an artery. Officers fired back 32 times, hitting Taylor 6 times and killing her. Jesus freaking Christ. In a separate indictment, Hankinson is charged with using unconstitutionally excessive force during the raid on Miss Taylor's home for blind firing 10 shots into the home, several of which went into an unoccupied neighboring apartment without a lawfully objective justifying the use of deadly force. Assistant Attorney General Kirsten Clark for the Civil Rights Division announced during a Thursday morning news conference alongside Garland in Washington, D.C. Hankinson was acquitted by a Jefferson County jury earlier this year on the state charges of wanton endangerment that was related to the shots in the apartment, which came close but did not injure. What? It came close but didn't injure? I guess it's okay. He was the sole officer indicted on the state charges by a grand jury led by Attorney General Daniel Cameron's office. Cameron's prosecutors never recommended any charges for any of the other officers. Wild. I guess it takes that many years to get through the BS lies, but she finally might get justice. I hope so. All these motherfuckers need to be held accountable. All of them. All of them. And the fact that, like, what enrages me is that, like, the freaking, by the way, hi, nice to see you. Hey, howdy. By the way, what enrages me is, like, the reaction, the commentary of the right. Like, the commentary of the right was just so gross. I heard the story, crazy story as well. It's hanging protesting at the Breeway is what we call the Jefferson Square. Gotcha. Was it a no-knock warrant? Yes. I believe so. I don't know what's the relevance of it. It doesn't matter. Nationally known civil rights attorney Ben Grump, who represented Taylor's family along with local attorneys Lonita Baker and Sam Aguilar, said after Thursday's announcement that was a great announcement to arrest a great day. Said after Thursday's announcement that it was a great day to arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor, and so it did. Thank God Attorney General Daniel Cameron did not get the last word in the death of Breonna Taylor. That's one way of putting it. It led to somebody's death. Sketch is like the least of the words that I would choose, but yeah, they shouldn't be allowed to begin with, in my opinion. There's no reason why you need to give police authority to do no-knock warrants. It just shouldn't be a thing. Sorry, it shouldn't be a thing. Cameron, Kentucky's Republican Attorney General, drew the ire of protesters and Taylor's family in 2020 after he announced that only Hankinson and no other Lmpd personnel would face state charges related to the case. He could not be immediately reached for comment. Coward. Today was a huge step towards justice. We are grateful for the diligence and dedication of the FBI and DOJ as they investigated what led to Brianna's murder and what transpired afterwards. Yeah, you know what? I'll say this. I'm glad that the feds got involved. And I'm glad that they freaking investigated this to the detail, how it was supposed to be, from the beginning. So, good on them. The justice that Brianna received today would have not been possible without the efforts of Attorney General Merrick Garland or Assistant AG for Civil Rights Kristen Clark. We hope this announcement of guilty pleas sends a message to all involved officers that it is time to cover up and time to accept responsibility for their roles, Lamau, in causing death of innocent, beautiful young black women. Governor Andy Beshear asked about indictments during a Thursday afternoon update on devastating floods in Kentucky and said that he had not yet had a chance to review the new charges and largely declined to comment. What? Why would you ask him? Okay. Pressed on whether he was concerned that the DOJ indicted several officers while prosecution from Cameron's office did not ultimately earn a conviction against Hankinson, Beshear noted that there are differences between federal and state charges. True. Steve Romanis, who represented Walker in ongoing litigation against the LMPD and the officers at Taylor's apartment that night, tweeted on Thursday that for 2 years, if they hadn't lied from the beginning, they would have never been there. Yep. But they are not convicted, so we've been disappointed before. True. I mean, true. And the one asshole who was well, these were state charges, but the one asshole who was indicted ended up being acquitted. But we'll see. We'll see, because the federal thing is a whole different ball game. We'll see how that goes. And I mean, hopefully accountability happens. The LMPD lied to get a warrant, lied about the raid, and lied to frame Kenny to cover it up. And then Daniel Cameron lied about the grand jury. Oh boy. Cameron initially said the grand jury declined to indict any other officers, but several anonymous grand jurors said that wasn't true, and they were never presented with any additional charges. Yeah, I'm inclined to believe that this attorney general lied to cover up for the cops. During the Thursday announcement, Garland said that federal charges focus on the conduct of LMPD's place-based investigation unit, which lawyer for Taylor's family labeled as a rogue group that targeted people on and drugs in Louisville's West End. The since disbanded PBI unit issued 5 warrants related to the suspected drug trafficking in 2020, 4 of which were served at the properties in the West End, and 1 at Taylor's apartment that was roughly 10 miles away from the others on Springfield Drive. James Maney, the supervisor of the PBI unit, and Goodlet, a detective in the unit, were involved in the warrant for Taylor's home. Garland said the DOJ alleges the members of the PBI unit falsified the affidavit. Jesus Christ. Falsified the affidavit to used to obtain the warrant. So that's like super. Yeah, that's a huge no-no. You're falsifying documents. You're lying. And somebody's dead. And now somebody's died. Cameron is a horrible person. Yeah, I see that. I guess Russia signed Brittany Griner to a 9-year contract today. I'm not sure what that means. You mean sentence her for bullshit? Okay. I don't know what that means. Which violated federal civil rights laws, including Taylor's Fourth Amendment right, and resulted in Taylor's death. Yeah. James Meany and Goodlet sought the warrant for Taylor's home, knowing that the officers lacked probable cause for the search. And they knew the affidavit in support of the warrant contained false and misleading information and omitted material information. Yikes. Garland then outlined several details that had previously surfaced when Janes was fired last year, namely that in the affidavit he swore before a judge, Janes wrote that he'd verified through a U.S. postal inspector that Taylor's ex-boyfriend, Jamarcus Glover, a suspected drug trafficker, was having packages delivered to her apartment. Goodlet added a paragraph to the affidavit stating investigators verified through databases that Taylor's address was Glover's as of February of 2020, which the indictment says was misleading. But James had actually spoken admittingly who had gotten the information from Shively Police, not the postal inspector. Wow. Oh, yikes. According to those Shively officers, postal inspectors said there was no packages. Wow. I wonder if we're going to get any response here by the giants of principled, independent journalism. I wonder if we're going to get a response from the giants of principled journalism like Tim Pool, right? According to those Shively officers, postal inspectors said there was no packages. Police found no drugs or cash in Taylor's apartment after the fatal shooting. New allegations that Garland shared on Thursday include that Janes and Goodlet met in Jane's garage in May of 2020 and conspired to knowingly falsify an investigative document and conspired to mislead federal, state, and local authorities who were investigating the shootings. Wow. The CJ, broke the USPS story in 2020. Gotcha. This article, this news source. What are the federal charges each Lmpd officer is facing? According to the DOJ's new release, the first indictment, which charges Janes and Meany in connection with the warrant, contains 4 counts. Janes and Meany's willfully deprived Taylor of her constitutional rights by drafting and approving a false affidavit to obtain a search warrant for Taylor's home. Janes committed a conspiracy for agreeing with another detective to cover up the false warrant affidavit after Taylor's death by drafting a false investigative letter and making false statements to criminal investigators. Janes falsified a report with the intent to impede a criminal investigation into Taylor's death, and Meany made a false statement to federal investigators. Jesus. No shame, these people. Because they think they can get away with it. The second indictment is against Hankinson and includes 2 civil rights charges, alleging he willfully used unconstitutional excessive force while acting in his official capacity as an officer when he fired a service weapon into Taylor's apartment through a covered window and covered glass door. The DOJ alleges Hankinson used a dangerous weapon, yes, and his conduct involved an attempt to kill, with the counts charging him with depriving Taylor and a person staying with Taylor in her apartment of their constitutional rights by firing shots through a bedroom window that was covered with blinds and blackout curtains, depriving 3 of Taylor's neighbors by their constitutional rights by firing shots through a glass door that was covered with blinds and a curtain. Yeah, like in any other scenario, we would call that like, at the very least with her, attempted murder, right? Like, what did you think was going to happen when you just did this? The information charge Gauntlet with conspiracy contains 1 count of conspiring with Janes to falsify the warrant affidavit for Taylor's home and file a false report to cover up the false affidavit. Of all the civil rights violations that Janes, Meany, and Hankinson face are related to the federal statute of deprivation of rights under color of law and carry a maximum sentence of life imprisonment, where violations result in death or involves an attempt to kill. At least you didn't get the full 10. What kind of comment is that? Imagine 9 years for bullshit, which we don't even know if, like, she actually had drugs to begin with. But yeah, that's some bullshit. The obstruction-related charges that Janes and Maney face carry a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison. The false statement offense that Meany carries up to 5 years in prison, as do the conspiracy counts that Janes and Goddard face per DOJ. Actual sentences in case of conviction are determined by the judge, which the judge should throw the book at him. Goodlett is one of the several officers who was named in a separate FBI investigation that began in June of 2021 and related to the Lmpd personnel allegedly throwing drinks at people in Louisville's West End. Wow. As a result, she was reassigned in the department. Hold on, folks. Wow. So these people were just like assholes to begin with. I don't know why these people were I don't know why these people were even allowed to continue in the department. As a result, she was reassigned. She was reassigned in the department a year later. 2 other Lmpd officers were convicted this past June of federal civil rights violation related to the investigation. Those 2 are scheduled to be sentenced in September. It's unclear if Goodlett will also face charges in that case. 2 officers who fired shots that hit Breonna Taylor not charged. No federal charges were against the officers whose rounds struck Taylor since they didn't know the information and the search warrant was wrong. Yikes. I don't know how I feel about that. That's not an excuse. The officers who broke down Taylor's door fired 32 rounds, with Hankinson firing another 10 from his side through the patio door and window, both of which were covered. Detective Miles Cosgrove, who fired the shot that killed Taylor, and Hankinson were previously terminated by the Lmpd for their actions. Mattingly, who fired non-fatal rounds that struck Taylor after he was shot, was cleared but retired from the department. The officers who ultimately carried out the search at this Taylor's apartment were not involved in the drafting of the warrant, were unaware of the false and misleading statements that they contained. Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher said in a statement Thursday, the indictments are a critical step forward in the process of achieving justice for Breonna Taylor. My thoughts are with Tamika Palmer, Breonna's mother, and those who loved and cared for Breonna. Fisher said, while we cannot reverse her tragic death, then we can and must continue to pursue justice for her. I deeply appreciate the hard work of the federal government to tirelessly pursue this case. And while I know some may feel this process has taken too long, as I have said from the beginning, there can be no shortcuts to due process and no shortcuts to justice. I agree with that. Today is an important day in that process and the journey towards justice. Fisher, a Democrat, added, and I pledge to my city that my administration will continue to be unflagging in our work to pursue this justice and create a more equitable, safe, and compassionate city for all Louisvillians. Fisher is also a lying asshole. Earlier this year, a jury found Hankinson not guilty of wanton endangerment charges that related... Oh yeah, okay. The FBI has been investigating Taylor's death since May of 2020 when it opened its color of law case that focused on allegations of police officers or other officials improperly using their authority, including excessive force, false arrest, or obstruction of justice. He told the protesters one thing and did another. Yikes. The DOJ, as part of its probe, has also been completing a comprehensive review of the Lmpd's policies and training, along with an assessment of the effectiveness of its supervision of officers and its system accountability, including its misconduct investigations. I would say that a lot of police departments across this country don't have very good systems of accountability. The investigation is continuing. Garland gave no indication when it would conclude. Well, we will see what happens with that. Folks, if you have 5 seconds and you enjoy the content, make sure you hit the follow button, okay? You get 5 free emotes, and if you guys have just a sec, all right? Just a sec. Head on over to the YouTubes, hit the subscribe button, and if you want to keep up with the channel, join the Discord right there, okay? Takes 5 seconds, I promise. Spread the word far and wide that this is a chill space to be for news and politics, Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. All right. For very obvious reasons, this guy is seems to be a Republican star. A reason that Orban keeps winning is he has the control of a dictator, said one political scientist. So the question is, what are the Republicans in it for? Because they're authoritarian. What? Of course. Echo Lou with the 100 biddies. Thank you so much. Thank you for your nice takes on the Breonna Taylor story. I appreciate that. Thank you. Viktor Orban has extolled the value of racial purity, is vehemently anti-immigration, and has cultivated close ties with Russia's Vladimir Putin, another authoritarian fuck, and is a speaker at this week's CPAC. Nice! In Dallas, Texas. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban is widely criticized around the world for systemically dismantling his country's nascent democracy during his 12 years in power, but that hasn't stopped him from emerging as a darling on many of the right in America, including Tucker Carlson. Former President Trump and his one-time chief strategist Steve Bannon are also speaking at CPAC, America's top conservative conference, and both are fans of Orban's, of course, because they're authoritarians. Like, what? Bannon called the Hungarian leader the Trump before Trump in a speech in Budapest in 2018. Right. The implication is, of course, authoritarians are good. While Trump was voted out, Orban, the first European Union leader to speak out in support of Trump's campaign in 2016, looks unassailable, with control over the media, the legislature, and the judiciary in Hungary. Meanwhile, the fractured left-wing and centrist opposition is marginalized. Fox News' Tucker Carlson, who has interviewed Orban and hosted a show from Budapest for a week in 2021, describes Hungary as a small country with a lot of lessons for the rest of us. Oh, I know, Tucker Carlson. I know, Tucker. I know. Was that earlier? He espouses the value of racial purity. I know, Tucker. Trust me. In January, Carlson released a documentary titled Hungary versus Soros. As if, I mean, do we need to go further into that? Hungary versus Soros, a fight for civilization, a reference to George Soros, the Hungarian-born Jewish businessman and philanthropist who has become a scapegoat for Orban and his allies because it is a euphemism for the Jews. It is a token or whatever you want to call it, a euphemism to do anti-Semitic undertones and dog whistles that don't seem to be dog whistles anymore, just bullhorns. One Hungarian writer, Balázs Gulyás, said that praising Orban, Carlson had depicted Hungary as a conservative Disneyland. Ahead of this week's conference, Trump released a picture of him and Orban together. Great spending time with my friend. Of course. We discussed many interesting topics. Do some of them include the value of racial purity? Few people know as much about what is going on in the world today. We are also celebrating his great electoral victory in April. Yeah, those are questionable at best. Yikes. The effects of Orban's takeover are in many ways subtle, and Hungary does not outwardly appear to be an authoritarian state. Those are the best kind. Those are the most dangerous types there. The best way to do authoritarianism is like that. Budapest is one of the most beautiful cities on earth. It feels so functional and free. You get there and you think this can't possibly be a dictatorship. That's because Orban's repression is very 21st century, adding that the country's democracy has been eroding through changes in the constitution rather than through violence. Hey, ring a bell? They're subverting the actual systems and the actual institutions. Does that ring a bell? Are we picking up what we're throwing down here? You know, tying everything together from the first half? Do we see how we're tying all of this together neatly, wrapped in a little bow and everything? Do we see the issues with Republicans winning elections, especially with Republicans pushing conspiracy theorists for positions like Secretary of State? Freedom House, a Washington-based human rights advocacy group, rates Hungary only as a partly free country in its rating for 2022. It said Orban had used law changes to consolidate control over the country's independent institutions, pass anti-immigrant and anti-LGBT policies, and hinder opposition groups, journalists, and universities and non-governmental organizations. That's very interesting. That is very interesting. Where have we seen this before again? I don't know. It can't happen here, right? In promotion of Orban's family values agenda, Hungary banned adoption by same-sex couples in 2020, removed the right of trans people to legally change their gender. Hungary also refused to ratify the Istanbul Convention, a legally binding international agreement aimed at preventing violence against women. What? How hard is that? Family values. Family values, and can't even sign a international agreement that aims to prevent violence against women. Damn, that is a super self-report. Yikes. Republicans such as Ron Johnson, who said the January 6th insurrection was largely a peaceful protest, have praised Orban's border policies. What exactly attracts the U.S. right to him? Because they're authoritarians. That's why, because they're authoritarians. The reason that Orban keeps winning is that he has control of a dictator. So the question is, what are the Republicans in it for? What? Because they're authoritarians. Are they tilting away from the principle that peaceful transfer of power is a bedrock of democracy? They don't care about that. We saw it happen. Against the thought that whoever wins a majority should take power, the idea of separation of powers, yeah, they don't care about any of that. They don't care about any of that. They're not interested in that. How far do they want to go on this? As far as it takes to create a authoritarian theocratic state. That's what they want. I think that's the scary part. And yeah, it is scary. It should be. It should be. Orban first made his name as a 26-year-old bearded revolutionary during the communist government's dying days. He was a recipient of a grant from George Soros' Open Society Foundations to spend 9 months at Oxford to research civil society and European political philosophy. 33 years later, Orban and his allies depict Soros as a dangerous puppet master behind Western plans to force migrants on unwilling countries. That is the Jewish. What is it? The Jewish question. This is literally indistinguishable from Nazi shit. This ideology and idea that a Jewish person is a puppet master, which is a trope that is behind Western plans to force immigrants on unwilling this is indistinguishable from Nazi rhetoric. That's literally almost verbatim of how their ideology works. His Open Foundation funds independent groups working for justice, democratic governance, and human rights, making him an obvious target for far-right nationalists. One could say national socialists, right? This guy is like literally a freaking espousing indistinguishable Nazi talking points. In 2017, Fidesz ran an anti-immigration campaign that pictured Soros' face with the slogan, Let's not let Soros have the last laugh. Soros responded by calling the images anti-Semitic and part of a deliberate disinformation campaign. Paul Lendvai, a journalist and biographer of Orban, had long acquaintances with opposition politics and power in his native Hungary. Born to Jewish parents, he was detained in Hungary and internment camps before fleeing during the 1956 uprising against the Soviet-backed communist government. Speaking from his home in Vienna, Lendvai said that the key to Orban's story is that Fidesz, who had won the last 4 elections with coalition partners, the KDNP, the Christian Democratic People's Party, controls all the major levels of power. At the moment, it's a hybrid regime, an open dictatorship in between a cultural democracy with no possibility of changing government because they have the majority to change the law, including electoral law. The courts are in their hands. Yeah, this is ringing some hard red flags here. It is uncomfortably close. To the ideas or methods that the Republicans are trying to deploy, right? Elite Gamer. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. But you can't change any. Hungary is no longer a democracy. It's not or not yet a dictatorship like Russia or China. People can demonstrate and travel to the West and set up opposition groups. But you can't change anything because the entire communication industry, including the so-called private and public, is in the hands of the government. 80% of the news. The press freedom group Reporters Without Borders said Orban has built a media empire whose outlet follows his party's orders. In a lengthy response to questions posed by NBC News, the Hungarian government's international communications office said that Fidesz's KDNP has received a record number of votes in April's election, which it was confirmed by independent observers. The government is committed to ensure rights such as free and diverse media and free expression, and said it always respected European values and has always confirmed to the rule of law expectations. But that's not exactly how it's panning out, is it? In Hungary, there's zero tolerance on racism and anti-Semitism, but yet engages in in the same exact engages in that. I think the things that maybe not written about often is in regards to this popular authoritarians, electoral autocrats are not always completely conscious of their trajectory. They don't genuinely believe they're undermining democracy. Instead, they're saving it from pollution of others. Of course, to save it though, they pursue forms of what they'd call temporary suspensions of pluralism and checks and balances. Yeah. I think that that's the case in some scenarios, maybe even in this one. Yeah. In the statement adding that such acts are to be punished with the full force of the law and neither they are tolerated in political discourse, but yet Orban engages in anti-Semitism all the time. Orban first made his name in 1989 at a funeral service to commemorate victims of the then-collapsing communist regime, where he delivered a rousing speech on behalf of the younger generation in front of 250,000 people in Budapest Hero Square. Soros also supported the college where Orban and many of his close associates studied, which became the launchpads for Fidesz, originally left-of-center youth-focused party that moved right during the 90s. But the shoots of liberal democracy did not flourish in the rubble of Hungary's communist government. Orban, who trained as a lawyer, became the youngest prime minister in Europe at age 35 in 1998 at the helm of a right-wing coalition, but was voted out in 2002 and lost again in 2006. In 2009, he told a group of supporters, "We only have to win once, but then properly." A statement widely interpreted to mean that the measures could be taken to change the system for a party's long-term benefit. Oh man. The parallels, folks. Today, Orban has become a poster boy for hardline autocratic leaders like Turkey's Erdogan, Brazil's Bolsonaro, and Russia's Putin. His transformation from the voice of Hungary's youth to anti-immigration nationalist leader appears to have culminated on July 25th, declaring during a speech, "This is why we've always fought. We are willing to mix with one another." What? That's weird. But we do not want to become peoples of mixed race. Oof. Orban has refused to retract his comments, but instead they were misinterpreted. I don't know what's to misinterpret there, but okay. The American Conservative Union, the organizers of CPAC, defended their invitation of Orban regardless of his comments. The CPAC is looking forward to hosting leaders from across the country and the world. We support the open exchange of ideas, unlike so many American socialists. What? Oh, this is a good meme. The press might despise Prime Minister Orban, but he is a popular leader. No, that's not the problem. The problem isn't his, whatever the press says. The problem is that he's an authoritarian, and you guys are emulating him way too close for comfort and adulate him. Yeah. Responding to the controversy, March Slap, the CPAC chairman, said on Twitter, "When we silence people, we skip the chance to learn why we disagree with..." Wait. The point of CPAC is to have like a conservative, event, right? There's no like debates on CPAC, right? To my knowledge, like conservatives don't do the whole when you have events like CPAC, you're not there to debate ideas, right? Like to my understanding, that's not okay. You're there because you agree with them and you want to praise them and you want to have them as guest speakers. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen told a Slovakian newspaper on Saturday in response to a question on Orban's comments, all EU member states, including Hungary, signed up to common global values. Discriminating on the basis of race is to trample on those values. The European Union is built on equality, tolerance, justice, and fair play. In the context of Orban's incendiary comments is Hungary's mounting economic crisis, according to Peter Kreko, a fellow for the Center of European Policy Analysis in Budapest. Orban's anything but stupid. He calculates that there will be domestic and international outrage. Anyways, TLDR, to bring it full circle. This should be ringing multiple alarm bells, which is of course what they did when they got elected and drastically shifted the districting and electoral process of the country to essentially transform their democracy into a partial sham. Yeah, and make no mistake, again, to bring it all full circle, Republicans are seeking to emulate something similar. They clearly think he's a good person or a good model. They clearly adore him. Donald Trump says he's his friend. Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson. I mean, yeah. To bring it back again, just to bring it all back in full circle with the whole articles regarding Republicans putting election deniers up front and center, nominating election deniers in front and center to positions that are pretty powerful, like Secretary of State. All of this, the fact that this guy is like a guest speaker in CPAC, all this should be ringing alarm bells. The Republican Party is, again, for the umpteenth, thousandth time. Yeah, they're taking the notes from the one guy you shouldn't. Yeah, but unless you should, if that's your goal. If that's your goal, which is my argument. My argument is that if the Republicans get the second they get a chance, they can and they will implement a theocratic authoritarian state. And someone like Orban is a perfect blueprint, right? Because it's not like necessarily outwardly authoritarian. It's little by little, right? You know? Let's start with undermining one of the most important parts of a democracy, the electoral system. Let's start there. And then, slowly but surely, and like I said, once the switch is flipped, there's no going back. This is the great puzzle of electoral autocracies for many observers. It's usually hard for people to comprehend that citizens would willingly support autocrats because it goes against everything we're taught about the principle of democracy. But then, once they're embedded into the state like Putin or Orban, it becomes a little more complicated how to decipher how authentic their support is. Yeah. That's, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Oof. Creepy stuff, folks. Not good. Not good at all. All right, folks. Unfortunately, that is all the time I have today. We did successfully get through everything. I appreciate all of you guys hanging out here. Thank you so much to Tina for A, bringing her wonderful community over here, B, giving a tier 1 sub, Bond giving a tier 1 community sub out, and Echo Lou with the 100 biddies. Thank you to all the new followers. I appreciate that. If you guys enjoy the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. Don't forget to spread the word far and wide that this is the chillest place to be for news and politics, Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Check us out on the weekends at Sunday, I believe. Sunday about noon for Catter Days. But yeah, the fact that author of this article is puzzled by the links between the two is a little concerning. Any serious person who studies would be able to explain it to them pretty quickly. Yeah, I kind of noticed that. I kind of noticed that. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, the point of me illustrating that is because I'm trying to paint a picture, and I'm hoping that that picture was painted. I'm hoping that picture was painted, and people can see what I see. That being said, thanks James Napper for coming in here. I appreciate that, and I appreciate all of your wonderful resources. Thank you all, folks. If you guys again enjoy the content, don't forget, follow, subscribe to the YouTubes, do the things. As always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya. Good night. I had a little chat with Pipa Norris about this over Twitter, and her new book should cover some of that, so that's good. I can post some of that in the Discord. Nice! Nice. You have a good night. Thank you. All right, folks, we're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.